We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to bring you a special episode of Ask Us Anything, Marvel Jesus Edition. SDCC San Diego Comic Con was over the weekend, and yeah, there was a lot of stuff that was announced, loads of trailers, stuff about Star Trek, and a little bit about Star Wars and TV shows and all of that stuff. But on Sunday, all of that was rendered irrelevant because Kevin Feige made the biggest announcement of all. And we've had a ton of questions on our social media and a ton of comments about it. So we thought, let's address them right away and not wait until Friday. Robert Downey Jr. is back in the MCU, only he is not Tony Stark. He is going to be playing Victor Von Doom. He is going to be Doctor Doom in two new Avengers movies coming out 2026 and 2027. Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. And then to top that all off, the icing on the cake is that the Russo brothers are back to direct those two movies. So, we're here to give you our 2 cents on what we think about this big announcement. Bahir,
Yes.
what is your take on Marvel Jesus returning? Returning from the dead, quite literally being resurrected on a Sunday, no less.
Oh, geez, I didn't put that together. I've had people reach out and ask, and I'm like, I think it's not that big a deal.
Right?
For me, it's a very clearly defined sort of rules of engagement, right? Kevin Feige has come out and said that the Fantastic Four is a separate universe altogether from the MCU that we've been watching. So why can't Robert Downey Jr. join that Marvel Cinematic Universe as a different character?
Exactly.
So for me, when the news broke, like we were getting videos and people were sending us images and tweets and all that, my number one question was, is it Tony Stark as Doctor Doom or is it RDJ as Victor Von Doom? I'm happy to announce that it is Robert Downey Jr. as Victor Von Doom, which is fine. For me, that's fine. It doesn't bother the Stark legacy and the Stark name, and that's fine.
I think this goes back to what we were talking about with regards to Deadpool and Wolverine. And this is also my problem with the current cultural conversation, right? Deadpool and Wolverine was making fun of this exact thing. It was making fun of the fact that we are unable to extract the actor and the real life individual from the characters they play on screen. It was
Yeah.
doing two things. It was cashing in on the notion of that because it knew that was enough to make a movie a shit ton of money, but also it was critiquing that notion that Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool and Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. And that goes back to the same problem I had with Black Panther Wakanda Forever and why they didn't recast Chadwick Boseman. I loved Chadwick Boseman. I thought he was a phenomenal actor. I thought he was an incredible Black Panther. I realized the impact that had on the African American community in America. However, recast the character. I think that is more respectful because we have to separate the character from the actor. They recast Thaddeus Ross in seconds. They were like, oh, William Hurt died. We're really sorry. Here's Harrison fucking Ford, right?
I kind of disagree with that.
I'm still upset that they killed off Black Panther off screen.
I feel like the problem with Black Panther, and that's different from Thaddeus Ross, because Black Panther was and will be a mainstay character in the MCU. So to recast him feels weird and wrong, whereas Thaddeus Ross hasn't shown up on screen in a long time. I feel like that's not that big of a problem.
I think it's a timing thing. I think it's because Black Panther Wakanda Forever was in production. I think if they had announced it at a later date, they would have just put it on hold and waited
Right. No.
and
maybe.
gone, you know what? Let's just wait 5 years and then it'll be okay to recast the character. I think it was a timing thing.
Maybe. You're right. Yeah.
But back to Robert Downey Jr.
And I think the Robert Downey Jr. thing is a completely different case.
I totally agree, but I think it's also a matter of us extricating the fact that he is Tony Stark.
Yeah.
He is an actor. He is an incredibly powerful actor, as we saw in Oppenheimer. And I think they wanted a really great actor to take on one of the greatest villains in the Marvel Universe.
Maybe it's a case of Marvel have come to a wall with regards to casting. who else can you bring in? Is there an actor that hasn't been in the MCU that can be in the MCU that wants to be in the MCU, right? Also taking into account the fact that this version of Doctor Doom and Fantastic Four, Doctor Doom can't be a kid. He has to be able to stand up to Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards, right? So who do you go to? Gary Oldman? Maybe Gary Oldman doesn't want to fucking touch an MCU movie. Where do you go? And I'm not disagreeing with you that Robert Downey Jr. is a great actor and there's no sort of taking that away from him. But it's also that question of, have the MCU just gone back around again? Have they just run out of actors to approach? I think that's an interesting argument to make as well. They're not trying hard enough. Maybe there's an undiscovered actor, but you don't want an undiscovered actor to play Victor Von Doom. You want someone who can fill a screen as soon as you announce it. This isn't Glenn Powell when he showed up in that Batman movie. He has to carry the movie across from Pedro Pascal. So just from a production standpoint, I can't see why it makes sense.
I'm also curious about what happens with the Fantastic Four movie being set in the 1960s. It's supposed to have this retro futuristic look. We haven't seen the trailer. I know there's a leaked teaser trailer out there, but I refuse to watch it. I want to see the full high-res version when they finally release it. But I'm curious as to what happens after that. I mean, is the Fantastic Four essentially the soft reboot of the MCU moving forward? So it starts with the Fantastic Four. The multiverse saga ends with the second Avengers movie, which Robert Downey Jr. has signed on to do. He's only signed on for 2 movies. And given his age, I think that works out correctly. And then after that, they move forward with a new lineup of Marvel characters and Marvel stories.
I've been thinking about that. Like, you pitched it to me on Sunday and you were talking about how maybe it's a soft reboot. And I think of all the genius things Kevin Feige has done, this would be the ultimate fucking genius move.
I totally agree.
So look, you're starting off in the 1960s with the Fantastic Four. You can now essentially change the channel from Earth 616 to now follow this new Marvel Cinematic Universe that has been launched by the Fantastic Four. So we can essentially just move the audience's point of view, perspective to this new universe, which means you can have a new Stark, which means you can have a new Rogers, which means you can start all of that again with younger actors and do it all over without having to get into story arguments about, oh, how do you bring back Tony Stark and Captain America and all that stuff.
And you can tell completely different stories featuring those characters as well, as they did in the Spider-Man Unlimited series and what they've done in Marvel Comics in the past as well.
But also, you can also do, don't take this the wrong way, but you can do stupid things.
Oh, of course. You can do wild, crazy things.
Yeah, because now
like they do in the comics all the time.
Fresh. Yeah, the comics used to do that and still do that all the freaking time. Because now you have a fresh slate. You have a fresh slate with characters that you still recognize and know and not have to worry about the baggage of 34 films before this.
And also, it's a great way to bring in the X-Men. Because now you don't have to answer that question of where have the X-Men been all of this time? Have they just been on another Earth, etc., etc.? And so it's a nice way to bring in the X-Men. They can be the new focus moving forward. You don't have to have it just be the Avengers all the time.
I'm actually very excited because for me, it breaks none of the rules, right? If as a producer, if as a writer, you like Kamala Khan as Miss Marvel, bring back the actress. Doesn't matter. Because maybe the Kamala Khan in this new universe is also the same Kamala Khan as the previous one. You can keep Tom Holland as this new universe's Spider-Man.
Or you can just bring in a live-action Miles Morales.
Or you can do live-action Miles Morales, right? My point is, like, this means you now have the opportunity to do so many things without the fanboy baggage of the 30 Marvel Universe movies and all that. So it's fine. I think it works great.
But also, this is the most important thing for me and just highlights the genius of Kevin Feige, right? What he did on Sunday broke the internet for good reason. Marvel, as we all know, was on a bit of a downturn. I say was because Deadpool Wolverine just cleaned up at the box office and broke every single R-rated movie record out there. 438 million globally over the last weekend. So they were in a bit of a downturn. They only have one movie this year. They ditched SDCC and they've been announcing a load of stuff at D23.
Yeah.
Marvel comes back to Hall H. And them coming back to Hall H meant they have to bring something big with them. And SDCC is very different from D23. D23 is great, but D23 does cater for the Marvel fanboys and fangirls. SDCC caters for every possible kind of fan, pop culture fan there is out there. And if you've been to SDCC, you understand what I'm talking about. It is sheer insanity, and he knows his audience. He brings them there. He doesn't just announce the Russo brothers, he announces Robert Downey Jr. You get fan servicing, and what's more, Monday morning, you get investor servicing. Investors have confidence in the Russo brothers because they single-handedly have probably brought in about $6 billion over 4 of their movies for the Marvel Cinematic Universe and for Disney. And so investors feel bolstered at that. And then you've got Robert Downey Jr. coming fresh off his Oscar and Marvel Messiah, Marvel Jesus. And so investors are just feeling very, very happy. And so it bolsters the Disney stock price and it bolsters everything that the fans are hoping for in the coming years with the MCU. So for me, that is a genius masterstroke of a play. And I think that's what you need to celebrate Kevin Feige for, the business acumen in doing that. And I don't think you and I, Bahir, can fathom the amount of money they must have thrown at these 3 individuals to make this happen.
I mean, I think it's probably not as much money for the Russos because the Russos have been on a downturn themselves.
Well, I think this is actually a very smart move on the Russos, right? Because everything that the Russos have put out since that point has been panned critically. And I think also just even from audiences, they've not warmed up to what they've been putting out. The Gray Man was garbage. Citadel wasn't great, even though Amazon has kind of hitched their wagon to them because there's all of these other Citadels coming out. But I have hope in that because they're done in different countries, different languages, different directors. So we'll see how that plays out. The Tom Holland movie they did for Apple TV Plus about the war drug thing, Cherry, wasn't great either. And so I think you may have a Peter Jackson problem, right? After Lord of the Rings, he kind of got a little bit inside his head and a little self-indulgent, and I think was given too much creative control. The Russos maybe need someone like Feige to rein them in and give them focus. And maybe that's the team that works really well to put out good stuff.
I feel like there's enough here. I mean, I was going to say there's enough here to be excited, but generally you and I have been quite excited for most MCU films because we don't take personal offense to these things.
Oh, exactly. That's right. Yeah, no one's come to your house and kicked your cats, basically.
Yeah, I mean, like, come on, right? Like, if it's not a great movie, that's fine. It's not a big deal. But I think at the end of the day, these moves, with beginning with Fantastic Four, for me, is showing that Feige is not just a great executive at a studio, he's also a fantastic storyteller, right? Sure, he might not be writing the day-to-day script, but the way he's shepherding the studio and how they are managing the workload and how they are managing the stories, I really want to see his office because I'm sure there's maps to maps to maps of just story beats to story beats. And I think that's exciting. I think what Kevin Feige could potentially do with look, everything we just said is speculative. They could just as well, at the end of the Fantastic Four film, just drop that family into a wormhole and they all just show up here in our version of the MCU, and that's fine, whatever. But I think if they were to follow up with this newer universe that they're starting off with Fantastic Four, I think that'd be genius, and I think it'll be fantastic.
I'm telling you, when they write the book on Kevin Feige, and I know they've written quite a few already, but when they write the book, the final book on Kevin Feige, I think he will go down in history as being someone special in Hollywood. I mean, this is like Robert Evans clever, if you ask me.
Yes, and the difference being he's not a jerk like Robert Evans.
That is true. He seemed like a genuinely nice guy.
Yeah, right. Like, I love Bob Evans. He's one of my sort of all-time favorite producers, but Feige is moving up that list really fast, quick. Mostly because he's not a drunk and a womanizer and a jerk.
Yeah, he's not a dick, which is good.
Which is good. Yeah.
All right. Those are pretty much our thoughts on Robert Downey Jr. rejoining the MCU. We want to know what your thoughts are. Let us know. You know how to reach out. Goggler MY, all of our social media feeds. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. We will have our regular Ask Us Anything on Friday. And so if you send us your thoughts before them, we will also share them on that show. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.